Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Jake Parent. He's the founder of Breath Energy. It's a luxury breathwork studio, a space where he says high performers, seekers, and self aware leaders to come to connect with purpose, process, emotion, and embody their full potential. So we learn about all this. We learn about how to use breath for emotional resilience, clear decision making, and sustainable growth. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Jake.
Great.
And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit. A lot of leaders across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how they can use breath work, especially for high performance. So we'll talk about all this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Sure thing. I started off as I grew up in Arkansas in America, which is kind of a rural area, and had a rough upbringing. And I like to joke that I got dealt a hand of bad cards and then played them worse. And by the time I got to my late 30s, I had been a professional athlete for about 17 years and was using that to manage my anger. I didn't realize I had an anger issue because I was managing it through athletics. And once that ended, I'd also had a professional career at the same time where I worked in B2B sales, B2B marketing, was the chief revenue officer for fintechs and technology companies, and kept running into roadblocks in my life where I thought I have this much potential, but I'm not achieving that potential. And I couldn't figure out why I wasn't achieving my potential. And it turned out it was my anger. And once I addressed that, it really released a lot of potential that I had in my life so that I could be more effective, which is really one of the things that breath work can help you do, is become more effective through your life through self-awareness and emotional healing, and that it creates that growth in you so that you can accomplish what you think you're capable of.
Absolutely. So, Jack, to understand it better, how should one understand breath work when you talk? Means everybody knows, I assume everybody breathes. That's why they are alive. If they don't, they won't be including high
Right.
performers, non performers, or CEOs, or whoever it is. How do you like people to understand breath work, Jake, from your point of view?
It's it's a great question, and I often joke that when people go, "Well, we're all breathing," and it's one of those things where everybody thinks they're a nutrition expert because they eat every day as well, and it's the same with breathing. We're all doing it. That doesn't mean that we're doing it consciously. So that is one of the first things that happens. There's a couple things that make up the type of breath work that we do. It's called conscious connected breathing, and the first thing is that you become conscious of your breath. Most of the time that we're breathing, we're unaware that we're breathing. And there's a lot of other things that are going on in our life that happen automatically that we're also unaware of. So when we become conscious of our breath, it takes those things that we're unaware of in our life, our blind spots, our pitfalls, the things that we're unknowingly not dealing with very skillfully, and brings that into our conscious mind so that we can become aware of that. And then with the connected breaths, usually when we breathe, we inhale, we exhale, and then at the end of that exhale, we pause. Most people don't realize that pause exists until somebody like me brings it up and goes, "Hey, you breathe you pause at the end of your exhale." And we just remove that pause. So that's the mechanics of the breathing, of the breath work that we do, that we create this rhythm, circular pattern to our breath. And that while we're doing that, we're filling ourselves from the bottom of the belly to the top, that we're filling ourselves like a glass. We use all the effort on the inhale. And then on the exhale, we just relax. And that's also a good model for our life, that you should have periods of effort followed by periods of relaxation, that you put in the effort and then you see the results. It's a lot like firing an arrow from a bow and arrow, that there's a lot of effort in getting that string back. And then once you let go of the arrow, you just wait for the result. And a lot of times people in life are trying to make micro adjustments of the arrow as it's flying through the air, but you just effort and relax. And then one of the biggest things that we have with breath work is that we set intentions, or sankalpa in India is what it'd be called. An intention is how you need to show up in life. Like, what is it in life that would allow you to be the best version of yourself? Do you need to be brave? Do you need to have increased self-worth? Do you need to talk kinder to yourself? Do you need to let go of things from the past? Do you need greater resilience? And that you can set an intention around any of that, and it'll improve your life professionally and personally when you take a moment to say, like, what do I want my life to look like 3 years from today? What do I need to accomplish personally, professionally? And that in doing that, what kind of person do I need to be so that that outcome is the automatic outcome? That because of who I am as a person, that's how I'll show up, and that's the outcome it'll create. And that's usually where we're looking to set that intention.
Absolutely, Jake. So, how does this, most of the time we do our breathing without knowing about it. And once we start, focusing on the breathing part, how long is that required to, why is it that 99% of the time when we are still breathing and unconscious breathing is not leading us to where we want to, but conscious breathing for how long will actually lead us where 99% is not leading us to? How does that work? How much should I concentrate on this conscious breathing for how long?
If you're doing self-guided breath work, 5 to 10 minutes of just paying attention to your breath and noticing it is probably enough to get you into a calm state. The classes and courses that I offer, we do anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours of breath work. And if you do that once a week, there is, with the sessions that we offer, there's an afterglow that takes place, that there's an emotional release that takes place and a mental stability, that you experience equanimity, and that afterglow of equanimity can last anywhere from 3 to 7 days after breath work. So usually we recommend 2 hours once a week, and that will absolutely level up your life.
Absolutely. How does it actually work? If someone wants to understand it, Jake, that Jake, I agree with you, but I want to understand, how does it actually work? Where does it lead to my, leading it for to shift my perspective from stress to clarity? Especially someone who is a leader, they ask you that
Mhm.
I know about my job, I have the expertise, I have clarity in your life, in my life. How will I get extra clarity through this particular thing that you are saying? Not that they don't believe it, but to
Mhm.
understand it better.
That's a great question. And for the first 2 years that I did breath work, I was often mystified at how much I felt better after breath work, how much my mood had improved, how much my mindset improved, and nothing had changed in my life. And that was the mystery to me. It was like, I feel better, but nothing on the ground has been altered, but I have a better mindset, I have a better approach to this. And physiologically, one of the things that happens, a lot of people have the mistaken idea that when they do breath work, that they're super oxygenating themselves, that they're increasing their oxygen levels. And you can put a pulsometer on your finger that will monitor the oxygen levels in your blood. And when you do breath work, the oxygen levels absolutely do not change. There's no way to get it. Most people are walking around 96, 97% oxygen saturation in their blood, and that's not going to change when you do breath work. What changes is the CO2 levels in your blood drop. And as those CO2 levels drop, it creates these smooth muscle sensations, and it creates an altered state within your mind. And I think one of the great things that happens with breath work is, one, it does create physical relaxation. And usually when people become physically relaxed, their mind mentally relaxes, and then their mind, their body, and their emotions all connect to each other, and they become connected. And through that connection, they can have clarity and develop self-awareness. And once they have that self-awareness, one of the things that happens is we're all dealing with a lot of urgent things in our life. But many of the urgent things that we're dealing with are not the most important. That if we think about this urgent thing that we have to do today, we're not going to remember it in 5 years, which is how I define things that are important, is by duration and time frame. If I'm doing this today and I remember it in 5 years, that was an important event. If I do this today and I can't remember it tomorrow, it probably wasn't very important. And what that breath work does, it allows you to clear that mental clutter of all the urgent but non-important things out of your mind so that you can recenter, refocus, and remember, hey, this is what's actually important in my life. These are the values that I hold dear and that I can execute on those.
Absolutely, Jake. So, talking about your own achievements and your life, earlier you said that, you know, you were doing everything right, but
Mhm.
weren't, fully able to achieve the potential you thought that you had. And then you realized, that through breath work, it could be. How did it actually work for you on the ground so that people can learn from that particular point in time?
That's a great question. At the time, I was a partner in a business. We handled marketing for law firms and business processes for law firms. And I would go in and I would do breath work and I would be relaxed. I would be calm. I would feel really good. That would last for about 3 or 4 days. And then around the 4 day mark, I would start getting a little antsy again, start getting a little stressed, start getting a little frustrated, start getting a little angry. My frustration levels would go up. And then a week later, I'd do breath work and it would reset me. And over the course of about 3 months, what I realized was um, I was working with the wrong people. That it didn't matter how well I displayed my gifts, that I would come to work, I would create this fantastic result, I would take it to my partners, and they would like, eh, whatever. Like nothing was ever good enough. And I eventually realized that through creating a state where I was in a better mindset, where I was in a better frame of mind, that the relationship we had in the business world wasn't healthy and it wasn't going to change. And I ended up exiting that business and starting another business that was, in the same field, and that did much better and had much better results. And unfortunately, COVID came along and kind of wrecked that business. But before COVID came, that business was going smashingly well. That I was working with people who respected what I did, they valued what I brought to the table, and because of that, we were able to really build a great team and a great business. After COVID, I did have to pivot a bit, but it allowed me to recognize again what is important and like, hey, and in relationships in my life in general, in personal relationships, being able to look at people and go, Is this the kind of person I want to associate with long term? Is this the kind of person I want to build a life with? And not just on a short term monetary, hey, we can make a lot of money here. It's like, would I enjoy the process of working with you and building something that's going to create a better life for everybody we touch?
Absolutely, Jake. Absolutely. Let's understand it from your challenges. When
Mhm.
people hear of breathwork, they understand it. Some people understand it much better. Many people find it perhaps, too simplistic, especially when it comes to paying money for that.
Mhm.
How do you explain them breathwork in your own way so that they find value? You talked about it, but even at the cost of repeating. But in terms of explaining the largeness, the vastness of breathwork, the benefits of breathwork, what are the challenges that you face in, convincing people to get into this sort of, either they come to your studio or even to get into their own personal, mind and understand this for 10 minutes?
I would say one of the biggest challenges that I face with the persuasion of people to try it is that they have done meditation, and if you're a hard charging, high performing business person, meditation it's a very difficult process and it's a very lengthy process that it takes a lot of practice before you start to see the benefits. Um, so usually the biggest challenge that I have is people thinking that it's not going to work for them. That, hey, I'm going to come here, I'm going to spend 2 hours breathing with you, and everything's going to be the same when I left. And the type of people I deal with, they're usually more concerned about the 2 hours than they are about the money. Like I'll actually pay you the money to go away and give me my 2 hours back if this doesn't work. Um, Fortunately, I have about 149 out of 150 people have a tremendous, powerful experience the first time that they do it. So we are able to offer them a money back guarantee that you are going, at the very least, you are going to experience a state of deep meditation. And how I define a state of deep meditation is that the monkey voice in your mind turns off and you can experience that clarity and that quietness and that stillness in your own mind. And then it can go much deeper than that. But that is usually the mildest experience that 149 out of 150 people have.
Absolutely. What expectations do generally people come to you for? What are the practical part? What is the practical part of expectation that should people have about? Should they should what is that they should expect? What is it that they are expecting too much when they are coming to you?
Uh, I Funny story. I had a guy one time that thought he was going to do breath work and that then he'd become the president of the United States. And I was like, well, we might want to bring that down a little bit. And I think another unreasonable expectation that people have when they come to breath work is that if they're in a relationship, that it's somehow going to alter their partner's behavior. And that, like, oh, I'm going to do breath work, and because I've done this work, this person will be more tolerable. And it's like, well, you may be able to tolerate them better, but it's not going to elevate them in their life. So those are some of the big things I see with people that we're not promising people outcomes. That a lot of times when people talk about manifesting, they are trying to manifest a particular outcome. Hey, I want this thing, I want this car, I want this business deal, I want this job. And that job may not be the best path for you. But if you become the type of person that you elevate yourself, that your character traits, that you become courageous, you become calm, you have clarity, you have self-connection with yourself, you have compassion for yourself and others, you have curiosity about the world, and that you have creativity, which all of those put together what generates self-awareness, that as you generate those traits, as those traits become more prevalent in you, you will live a greater, grander life. And maybe the exact outcome you were looking for isn't what you'll experience, but something bigger will come along to fill that position.
Absolutely, Jake. So to understand this, nowadays it's an age of wearable devices. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people might believe that, I will have a wearable device
Mm-hmm.
and then I will measure every aspect of whatever I am doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that will make me feel whether it is working. Or even I will start with, some stopwatch and put it for 10 minutes and then I will monitor it. What works best? Is it working alone with some wearable tech device? Is it working just with a stopwatch and with yourself? Or is it working, going for breath work with another human being together?
I think it works best doing breath work with another human being. One of the things that happens with breath work, that because of my background, I did not have I am not the type of person who was drawn towards breath work originally. I am very, let me see the numbers. I don't believe in any supernatural things. Breath work does have a strong physiological aspect to it, but it also has a deeply emotional aspect to it as well. And having a person there with you who can hold space and guide you through it is very important. When it comes to how you would measure the benefits from breath work, when you have a wearable device, if you have one that measures heart rate variability, which is one of the big things that they can use to determine long-term acute stress, is the less heart rate variability that you have, the more constant strain and stress that you are under, that you're going to see those heart rate variability numbers improve as you do breath work. But there isn't really a stopwatch, or the way that we guide breath work. The phrase that we have is, how you breathe is how you live, and how you live is how you breathe. And it is easier to change your breath than it is to change your life. But by changing your breath, you'll change your life. That normally in my day-to-day life, I'm rather slow, I'm rather methodical. I don't do things very quickly. Because of that, when I do breath work, I take big, long, slow inhales and big, long exhales. There's another facilitator that we have that works with us, who we call the human hummingbird. She's very fast, very like being all over the place. So whenever she breathes, it's and if I was breathing like that, I'd be very worn out in about 5 minutes. So what the facilitator is doing is, what the breathwork guide is doing, is working with you to make sure that your breath matches you. and that the style of breathing that you're doing matches you, so that you can get the greatest impact and outcome from it.
Absolutely, absolutely. In a nutshell, is there anything particular that you would want to tell the audience? Something that I was not able to ask in my questions.
I think one of the big things that we're looking for to help people with in life is to live a lifestyle of elegance. And elegance has a three-part definition. The first is that it's effective. So when I first started my journey, I was not as effective as I wanted to be, that I wanted more achievements than I was achieving. And I had barriers to that I couldn't understand. So the first thing that breathwork does is it allows you to be effective to the best of your ability, not in a world of like hustle or you've got to grind. I don't really believe in grinding, that you should be able to flow, and you should be able to flow energetically. And that after you become effective, in my life, normally whenever I figure out how to do something, I complicate it. There's a lot of extra steps in the beginning. And then after you figure out how to become effective, then you learn to simplify it, and that you create that simplified process, and breathwork can help you with that as well. And then the final step of elegance is that it's beautiful, that you can create a life that is effective, simple, and beautiful. And when you put all three of those together, I think it gives you the best lifestyle possible. And weekly breathwork can definitely help you do that.
Wonderful, wonderful. There's much to understand about all this from you, Jake, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, about your breath energy, and what's the best way for them to do so?
The best way to do that is go to our website, breath.energy. It has all our links, all our connections there. So it's breath.energy. There's no .com. There's no anything else. That's the entire domain name for our website.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining
Thank you.
us.
It's been a pleasure.